Most people go their entire lives not realizing they're still living inside a chapter they were supposed to close at 16. They don't know it. They can't see it. But it shows up in the relationships they sabotage, in the jobs they quit right before the breakthrough, in the reason they can't stand being alone for more than 20 minutes. There's a name for what's happening to them. And there's a reason it started long before they were old enough to do anything about it. Think about one pattern in your life, something you keep repeating that you genuinely cannot explain. A relationship you always seem to end up in. A fear that has no logical reason to be there. A version of yourself that only comes out under pressure and scares even you. Hold on to that. Because by the end of this video, there's a real chance you'll know exactly where it came from. Erik Erikson mapped the entire human lifespan into 8 stages. Each one has a wound if it goes wrong, and most people are carrying at least 2 or 3 they don't even know about. I'll tell you mine as we go. But first, let's build the foundation. What Erikson actually said. Erikson believed that from the day you're born to the day you die, you're moving through a series of psychological battles. Real internal conflicts that shape how you see yourself and how you move through the world. Every stage has 2 outcomes. One healthy. One not. And here's the part nobody talks about: you don't have to fully fail a stage for it to damage you. A partial failure is enough. Just enough doubt, just enough shame, just enough confusion, and it becomes the lens you see everything through for the next 20 years. The villain isn't some monster. It's usually just life. Parents who were doing their best but didn't know what you needed. A school system that graded your worth. A culture that told you who to be before you ever had the chance to figure it out yourself. Stage 1, trust versus mistrust. Birth to 18 months. You can't remember this stage. That's what makes it so dangerous. In your first year and a half of life, your nervous system is basically running one question on a loop: is the world safe? Will someone come when I need them? If yes consistently, reliably, your brain starts to wire itself around safety. Around hope. Around the basic assumption that things will work out. If the answer was no, if you cried and nobody came, if care was unpredictable, if love felt like something you had to earn, your nervous system filed that away. Not as a memory. As a posture. A permanent low-level readiness for things to go wrong. A lot of adults who call themselves anxious or guarded or "I just don't trust people," they're not broken. They're just still running stage 1 code in a stage 6 or 7 life. And until they understand that, it's almost impossible to change. Stage 2, autonomy versus shame and doubt. 18 months to 3 years. This is the no phase. The I do it myself phase. And every exhausted parent on earth wants it to stop. But here's what's actually happening: your child is running an experiment. The question is, when I try to do things myself, is that okay? Or is my independence a problem? The experiment doesn't last forever. Kids that age are constantly watching the reaction. Pride? Or embarrassment? Encouragement? Or correction every single time? And here's where it gets real. Imagine growing up in a house where every attempt to be independent was met with "no, that's wrong, let me do it," or worse, laughter. Fast forward 30 years and you've got the person who finally gets a promotion and immediately starts waiting for someone to take it back. The one who can't accept a compliment without immediately deflecting it. Who achieves something real and feels like a fraud the same afternoon. That's not a personality. That's stage 2 scar tissue. Stage 3, initiative versus guilt. Ages 3 to 6. Preschool. Kids are now doing something new. They're planning. They're imagining. Let's pretend we're astronauts. Let's build a fort. Let's start a club. Initiative is this beautiful thing. It's the first time a child starts to believe that their ideas have value, that they can make things happen. When that gets crushed, when a kid's plans are constantly interrupted, dismissed, or punished, they start to associate their own ambition with guilt, with being too much, with causing problems just by wanting things. And that becomes the adult who types out a long message and then deletes it before sending. Who has a real opinion in the meeting, watches someone else say it, and feels both relieved and furious at the same time. I've been that person in that meeting. More times than I'd like to admit. They're not conflict averse. They learned early that putting their ideas into the world comes with consequences. So they stopped. Stage 4, industry versus inferiority. Ages 6 to 12. School starts. And for the first time, your worth gets a grade. This is the stage where kids are comparing themselves constantly: who runs faster, reads better, gets picked first, finishes first. Erikson called this industry this drive to produce, to achieve, to be good at things. When kids get real encouragement and actually see themselves grow, they build something called competence. Not arrogance, just a quiet internal belief that says I can figure things out. But for a lot of kids, this stage is brutal. Learning differences that go undiagnosed. Teachers who favor certain students. Parents under so much pressure they forget to notice the small wins. And I'll be honest, I still feel this one sometimes. The voice that says everyone else in the room has credentials that actually count and mine are the ones that are somehow negotiable. Sitting with people I respect and waiting for them to figure out I don't actually belong there. That's not humility. That's stage 4, still running. And knowing where it comes from doesn't silence it completely, but it does take away its authority. Stage 5, identity versus role confusion. Ages 12 to 18. Okay. This is where I need to be honest with you about something. I spent most of my late teens and early 20s performing a version of myself that other people had basically written for me. The right interests. The right goals. The right way to be a person. And I was good at the performance. Convincingly good. The problem was I had no idea who was doing the performing. That's stage 5. Erikson called it identity versus role confusion, and it's the stage that probably does the most lasting damage when it goes wrong, because everything that comes after it is built on its foundation. The question of adolescence is, who am I? Not who does my family need me to be. Not who gets the most approval. Who am I when I stop trying to manage the room? Teenagers are supposed to explore this. They're supposed to test identities like they're testing equipment before a long trip, trying things, discarding them, trying again. That's not rebellion. That's development. That's Erikson's whole point. But a lot of people grow up in environments where that exploration isn't safe. Where the identity has already been decided. Or the opposite, complete chaos, no scaffolding, nobody paying enough attention to even react. And they walk out of adolescence carrying what Erikson called role confusion, this deep unsteadiness about who they are and what they actually stand for. Here's why that's not just a phase. Here's why it echoes. Stage 6: real intimacy. Real love requires you to bring a self to the table. You cannot genuinely connect with another person if you don't know who you are yet. What happens instead is one of two things: you keep everyone at arm's length because closeness feels like a threat to whatever fragile self you've assembled. Or you dissolve into other people completely, mistaking becoming them for connection, falling into relationships not because they're right but because they hand you an identity and that feels, temporarily, like relief. The stages bleed. What you didn't get at 15 will show up in your relationship at 32. What broke at 7 will walk into your office with you at 45. The math always catches up. It took me years to untangle stage 5. Some days I'm still in it. But the difference now is I know what I'm looking at. And that changes everything. The virtue here is called fidelity, not loyalty to a person, but loyalty to a true self. The ability to stand in your own life and mean it. Stage 6: intimacy versus isolation. Early adulthood, 18 to 40. You've done the work of stage 5, or at least enough of it. Now the question shifts: can I share who I am with someone else without losing it in the process? This stage is about real intimacy. Not proximity. Not chemistry. The kind of closeness where someone sees the parts of you that you've spent years carefully managing, the fear underneath the confidence, the doubt underneath the competence, and they stay. They don't flinch. They stay. Most people have never experienced that. And most people don't realize how much of their life is quietly organized around making sure they never have to risk it. That's the failure of this stage. And it doesn't always look like loneliness. Sometimes it looks like being the most social person in every room and having no one who actually knows you. Sometimes it looks like the person who shifts slightly their humor, their opinions, even their taste in music depending on who they're dating, becoming a different person for each relationship without noticing they're doing it. Sometimes it looks like relationships where you're fully present for everyone else's depths but your own stay locked. You give access. You just don't give entry. The person who has truly resolved stage 6 isn't someone who found the perfect partner. It's someone who learned how to be truly known and survived it. That's the whole achievement. The virtue is love, not the feeling. The practice. Showing up for another human being's full reality, over time, without an exit strategy. Stage 7: generativity versus stagnation. Middle adulthood, 40 to 65. Here's the thing about stage 7 that nobody tells you: the people who struggle most in midlife are often the ones who succeeded hardest in their 30s. They did everything right by the metrics. The career, the stability, the life that looks exactly like it was supposed to look. And then somewhere in their 40s a question appears that has no benchmark, no performance review. Does any of this actually matter? That's stage 7 asking a question that hasn't been answered yet. And it will keep asking until you answer it. Erikson called the healthy outcome generativity, and it's bigger than having kids or being a good boss. It's the felt sense that your existence is rippling forward. That something you're doing, building, or teaching will exist in the world after you're gone. When that's missing? Stagnation. Not laziness, stagnation. The feeling of going through the motions of a life that fits perfectly on paper and feels hollow in the body. That's the soul asking for purpose, not productivity. The virtue is care, the real act of investing yourself in people and things that will outlast you. Stage 8, ego integrity versus despair. Late adulthood, 65 and beyond. The final stage. And this one lands differently the older you get when you read it. Late in life, the mind naturally turns backward. People review. They look at the choices they made, the paths they didn't take, the words they said and didn't say, the people they loved and the ones they let go too soon. The question isn't, was it perfect? Nobody's was. It's something quieter than that. Was it mine? Was it honest? Did it mean something? People who can say yes even with regrets, even with real failures, find what Erikson called ego integrity. A kind of peace that isn't about having done everything right. It's about being able to hold the full truth of your life without looking away from it. People who can't say yes? Despair. And it's not dramatic, it's quiet. It's the person who doesn't talk about the past because it hurts too much to look at directly. Who is bitter in ways they can't quite explain. Who watches younger people live and feels something between envy and grief and doesn't have a word for the feeling. The virtue is wisdom, and it's not about knowing a lot. It's about being able to look at the whole of a human life, including yours, with clarity and with grace. That's what Erikson believed the entire journey was moving toward. All 8 stages, all those conflicts, all that damage and growth pointing at this. One person, at the end of their life, able to say, it was worth it. I was here. I want to know where this hit you. Not in a general, this was interesting way. I mean, which stage stopped you mid-sentence? Which one described a pattern in your life that you've never had a name for until right now? Drop the number in the comments. And if you want the one sentence that hit you. I read every single one not as a talking point, but because this is the conversation I actually want to have. Here's what I need you to hold on to. None of this, not one stage, is a life sentence. The whole point of understanding Erikson isn't to catalog your damage. It's to realize that the things that feel like character flaws, the guardedness, the self-doubt, the difficulty being truly known, the restlessness that follows you everywhere, those aren't you. They're responses. Smart, logical responses to environments and experiences that shaped you before you were old enough to shape yourself. And responses can change. That's the most important thing any psychologist has ever figured out. People change. Adults change. You can go back not in time, but in understanding, and do the work that circumstances didn't allow when you were young. Therapy does this. Honest relationships do this. Sometimes a single moment of recognition does this, when something clicks and you see your own story differently and the weight of it shifts. You are not the worst thing that happened to you. You are not the stage you got stuck in. You are not the pattern you keep repeating. You are a person in the middle of a process that lasts your entire life. Erikson spent his whole career watching people prove that. Broken people. Searching people. People who got it wrong for a long time before they got it right. You are not stuck. You are not broken. You are in progress. And that is where you're supposed to be. If this landed for you, if something in here finally gave a name to something you've been carrying, hit like. It helps more people find this kind of content, and I want more people in this conversation. And if this is the kind of conversation you want to keep having, the real stuff, the underneath stuff, the why am I like this stuff, that's what this channel is. Come be here for it. I'll see you in the next one. Take good care.